the world of sex, where we talk about everything they say you can't. It's time to put the kids to bed and listen to every word that's said. So get your glass of wine and let's talk about sex.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's performance is about to begin.
Welcome to Speaking Freedom TV's The World of Sex Show. I am your host, Dr. Kaci, and today we got two guests. We got Leah and Dr. Willow. Hey, ladies.
Hey, girl. So good to be here. So much fun.
I'm so happy to have you both. Oh my gosh. I feel like, it's like a threesome, but not like a threesome. But
it's like a podcast menage a trois.
Yes, I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about yourselves first, individually, and then I have some other questions for you, ladies.
Cool.
Go ahead, Leah.
Okay. Well, I'm Leah Piper. I'm an advanced certified Tantra educator and a positive psychology coach. And I've been in the sexuality space for about a little over 20 years, teaching beginner weekends to couples and individuals, running certified Tantra educator courses, taking couples on vacation and giving them a romantic vacation that they'll never forget and hopefully keep practicing when they go home. And these days I have been joint venturing with my BFF here, Dr. Willow Brown, with a project we call Sex Reimagined. We've got a podcast and we do online courses, and we're just starting to head into the retreat space, working with people in groups that are live. And it's been so much fun to open up these different doors to different experts who are in the sexuality field and are broadening our horizons. And for two people that have been in the intimacy space for 20 years, you think you've seen it all. And it's so fun when you find out you haven't.
I think that's one of the fun things about sexuality and exploring and expanding is, there's just, it's creativity. So there's this creativity space around it. So there's always new things being created. Like just the other day, this pussyology thing is coming through for us. It's very, very interesting. Mapping the vulva and reading the vulva like a tarot card. Just things are I think coming to people more and more as we open up our sexuality. So a little bit about me. I'm Dr. Willow Brown. I'm a Taoist sexology expert. So I really teach from the lens of Chinese medicine. That's my doctorate is in Chinese medicine. So I've been doing acupuncture and herbology, really focusing on women's health for a lot of years. So everything from painful periods to infertility to menopause, perimenopausal symptoms. And I also love working with men as well. So I do work with both. And one of the things that I think is so unique about my work is I like to blend this whole Chinese medicine model, which is based on Taoism, which is based on nature, right? It's based on the ebb and flow, the rise and fall of nature, and how we as humans do that same thing. We expand and we contract, and every single breath that we take, every single day that we move through, every single week, month, year, lifetime. And it's something we can bank on. Like we can bet on it. If we've been in a contractive period in our life, we can be sure that there's going to be an expansion afterwards. So really taking that Taoist philosophy and that model and then blending it with the more Celtic approach to health and longevity, especially inside of a woman's body, the moon cycle. So looking at those 4 phases of the moon cycle, how those blend together with the Chinese 5 elements, the yin, the yang, the expansion, contraction. So that's really what I'm putting out into the world in a huge way. So I have a book coming out soon called Sex as Medicine, and it is all in that book, all written out, all laid out.
I'm excited because sex is medicine. I've been celibate for a while, but I miss it a lot. And I'm going to end my celibacy soon. I just don't know how I'm going to stop being celibate because I don't even have anybody that's like, okay, this is the one that stopped being celibate for. Like, that's what I'm waiting on. I think I'm filling myself up full of hope. That's, I'm just gonna have to jump in there. So Leah, I want to know, how did you get started with like traveling with couples and doing the in-depth one-on-ones that you spoke of?
Yeah, good question. Well, when I was doing my certification trainings, it was sort of, we were learning. It was a 3 different level process of certification, and then eventually that expanded to 5 levels. And it was really concentrated on practicum and working with people one-on-one, which surprised me because when I started getting training in this space, I just thought I wanted to teach seminars. I didn't really have it in my mind to work with people one-on-one. I always saw myself as a public speaker type of person. So it was novel, this idea of actually having a private practice, helping people with their sexuality. It was like, I didn't know even how does this work? I wasn't a therapist.
Right.
And Tantra is something that is so intimate. It's this whole system of spirituality and sex. So it was great to get a business model for that. And so as I started working one-on-one with people, I ended up attracting people who needed the healing that I was doing on myself. So I had a sexual abuse history, and that was sort of really caused a lot of shame and guilt and secrets that I had to unpack and unravel. So naturally, who am I going to attract? People who are starting their journey of releasing sexual trauma, of releasing shame and guilt, and starting an awakening process where they're discovering deeper pleasure than they ever thought possible, going from numbness, no sensation, fear, to, oh my God, is this even real type of pleasure. So that felt like a real privilege, but it was also really pushed my comfort zone. And so 2 things were happening at once. I was building my private practice, and then I got invited by my teacher at the time to start teaching the courses with him and traveling all over the country. So I was really fortunate to have sort of a platform handed to me to step up on stage and to increase 2 skill sets at the same time. And as a result of building trust with an audience, those people naturally became clients because I had already established trust from the front of the room. So the 2 really blended really beautifully. I feel really grateful for those opportunities early on in my career.
Wow, that's amazing, especially to have your teacher and instructor want to take you with them. That's like,
Yes.
So, Dr. Willow, now it's your turn. My question for you about the work that you do, what is the difference between working with men versus working with women and couples? Because you very poignantly pointed out about working with men and how much you enjoy it.
That's such a good question. I love to study the sexes, the cisgendered sexes, I should say. I really think that they are so fascinating. If you have not read The Male Brain and the Female Brain, I highly recommend reading those books. You are just going to understand the opposite sex and what's going on inside of their brain in such a different way. Learning how to, what I love to do is really teach couples like how to speak to each other, how to communicate with a male brain when you're living inside of a female brain and vice versa. It's actually a very skilled thing to learn how to do. In my own pleasure in working with women versus men, I absolutely adore women. I just think they are just each one is like this intricate universe of just a magic abundance. And I do a lot of pelvic floor work. So I'll go in and we'll just unravel things from inside the vagina that you just can't make that stuff up. That'll be my second book, The Vagina, Stories from Within.
Vagina, you can't make this shit up.
Yeah, that is it right there. That's exactly what I was going to say. The vagina. You just can't make this shit up.
You cannot. It's amazing. And it's like a lot of it is past lifetimes. It's lineage work. It's clearing stuff from childhood. It's looking at what's going on in somebody's life right now and how is it related to their original trauma, their original wound. And somehow that stuff gets stored inside the vag quite a lot. So, and Leah sees that in her work too all the time. And then with men, God, it's such a privilege and such an honor to bring men to the precipice of receiving, surrendering, and opening up to pleasure like they never have before. And what I'm really learning through my work with men is most of the time they don't have the opportunity to even feel themselves because they are so what's the word? They're so concerned wired. And say it again.
I was going to say wired.
Yeah, wired, but also culturally, they've been ingrained to look outside and be like, how can I make this person feel good? How can I give them pleasure? Am I performing well? Am I doing this well? So there's a lot of outward attention and not a lot of inward attention usually. And so when a woman can really own her own sexual energy and like own her own turn on and find her own way through whatever the scenario is, and use her voice, it allows him to actually not take care of the other and take care of himself and feel for himself. And so that's what I'm noticing in my work with men is they're able to go to these places that they have never had the opportunity to go to before inside of themselves. And then they're like, wow, I mean, tears and just like, what we call kriyas, these like nervous system resets of pleasure start rippling through the body, things they've never experienced before, de-armoring. It's really powerful. So I love working with just humans. I'm a big fan of people.
Right. Well, I can imagine what you're talking about when you're talking about making men feel comfortable and working what I would call out the kinks of their soul because they get so stifled and conditioned to be strong and tough and not be vulnerable to where I can imagine based on our conversation now, because I never thought about it before, how it can hinder their sexual experience because if you're always unable to be vulnerable, then the little bit of vulnerability that you allow to be out in the bedroom prior to a session with Dr. Willow is definitely just the tip of the iceberg. And it's so much more pleasure that is there to be found and experienced. So I appreciate you because there's going to be some happy women out there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things too that Leah and I are always really helping women with is to really take responsibility for their own sexuality, for their own pleasure, for their own turn on, for their own bodies, for their own health and well-being. Sexuality, when we're looking at it through the Taoist lens, we're looking at health, we're looking at vitality, we're really looking at like, how can I cultivate this orgasmic chi, not just have an orgasm, but how can I move this orgasm to my adrenal glands and like give myself more energy for the next week to come? Or how can I move this orgasmic energy up into my brain so that brain fog disappears for the next 4 or 5 days? There's so much that we can do with our sexual energy that we don't think about. And that's why, we have Sex Reimagined. It's like, it's time to reimagine what's possible inside of what you've always known sexuality to be.
And that is one of the reasons why I did this show in particular, because society has placed a umbrella over what sex is supposed to be. So people think that it's only what's available in the square box that church or religion or society tells you is available. And what I learned after becoming a sex coach, I've always been very intrigued by sex for as probably long as I can remember. But after becoming a sex coach, I really started exploring more about what people want. So I use Twitter porn. That's my porn of choice because it's most amateur porn. It's just people having fun and just putting it out there versus it being like a screen script play, so, but when I was doing that and joining different Facebook groups, I found that people want all of the things that people think nobody wants. Like if you read comments on social media, they'll be like, "Oh, don't nobody want that. They're just using you," or da, da, da. And it's like, no, there are women that want certain things that people think that women don't want, and there are men that want more than what people think that men want. So now let's get some personal things going on. So I want both of you ladies to tell me, when did you start having sex, about that experience, and what was the most surprising thing that you learned about sex for yourself personally?
Wow, you got great questions.
Go diving right in.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right. So, that's kind of it depends on the official.
Not the trauma.
Not the trauma. Okay. We'll skip the trauma. Well, can I tell you something that's surprising about the trauma that's actually really positive? Was, although I was in an inappropriate age to be sort of sexualized, what the gift that it gave me was an ability to be awakened to erotic pleasure. To have that awakening at a younger age, I have always had access to orgasms. I have always had access to being in my body and feeling sensation. And so I've never really had trouble with being able to be orgasmic. And now I've had times in my life where my libido and my sexual energy felt like it just needed a rest. It was like, I'm taking a pause. And I'm like, but where are you? I can't find you anywhere. And it's like, that's okay. I don't need to be found. And so like, I've just tried to like hold that with grace when I've missed it. But by and large, I'm grateful that my body has always been alive.
Yes.
And I have a lot of compassion for those people that's not been an easy path forward. So I just have to say, like, that's been a real gift. I'm really grateful that my body sings and has since I was a child. And I really have come to realize that I think that's true for most bodies. There's been this misinformation. It's like, you don't get turned on until you go through puberty. And that's just not true. Our nerve endings have been there since we were babies. And if you just watch kids, it feels good to play with ourselves. And we've been doing it from such a young age. And so I think that there needs to be some more sex positive awareness that it's okay that children feel delicious sensations in their body.
Right.
We don't need to shame that or make them wrong or create a lot of danger around it.
Right.
If anything, it's just, this is your private time.
Right.
Go ahead and close your bedroom door and feel all the goods, just in case the repairman is walking through the house, So, I mean, there's just a little bit of education, but I think it's really beautiful that we have these delightfully feeling bodies that can hold so much sensation. So in terms of like when I first had sex, that's another little question, because, I was that classic girl that was like, just the tip, as if that was going to somehow preserve whatever the virginity was. Because I also grew up in a super religious household. So this whole virgin concept was something I wrestled with quite a bit, but I was just as horny as everybody else.
Right.
And so who really knows when I lost my virginity? Because
the tip turned into a little more.
I don't know, so I mean, technically.
I thought only guys just wanted the tip in.
Yeah, as soon as it was like getting a little too deep or I already had my orgasm, I'm like, okay, that's enough of the tip. I have to keep this virginity thing going. So technically I was 17 that I admitted losing my virginity, but God knows when I really lost it.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
Dr. Willow.
I don't think I've ever heard you talk about that, Leah. Just the tip. I'm going to call you just the tip now. Little Miss Just the Tip. So anyway.
Yeah. What's funny is I have a girlfriend from high school here, right? So she has been a part of this whole era when you're coming of age and becoming sexual. And we were just talking this morning about my just the tip situation.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Gosh, okay, my first sexual experience was also borderline rape, so not great. I was 16 and it wasn't a good experience. I did not have good sexual experiences for a while, I would say. I'm trying to think of like the first good one. I would say I started having, after the rape at 19, I had a really beautiful experience with an older man. It was very healing. We were out in the Kalalau Valley in Kauai. And it was just like, it was like being in the Garden of Eden, we were living out there for a couple of weeks and just.
See, now those flowers make sense.
Yes,
Yeah,
just like
totally.
living off the land and, just really basking in each other. And we're all tan and beautiful. And it was great. It was healing. It was really healing to my body and my heart and my yoni, and felt like I could really trust him. And, I got on the healing journey with sexuality very, very early due to those early traumas.
So, what was the most surprising thing? And before we go any further, I apologize, and I'm sorry to hear about you being raped. I believe that a lot of us experience sexual trauma before we experience sexual pleasure. And it's a matter of learning to work through and around that trauma so that we can actually reach the pleasure point.
Yeah. And, I, for a long time now, have been so grateful for those traumas. And I experienced them at a much later age than Leah and many other people. I was 16, 19. So I did have some, like, my prefrontal cortex was a little bit more developed, and I've been like so grateful for those experiences ever since, because they've led me to where I am today and who I am and what I get to do in the world. So, so what is the second part of the question? What was the surprise?
What was the most surprising thing that you learned?
I think just the surrender, like the trusting, really allowing somebody else to hold the space. And it still took a lot more years until I was responsible for my own sexuality. I think once I started stepping into that, where it was like more in my sexual sovereignty, then the surprises started coming, and I would just be like, wow, oh my God, I can't believe I just had that kind of orgasm. I can't believe I just had that kind of experience. Oh my God, my yoni is tripping out. It's doing these like electrical pulses through my whole body for like days on end, and I can't stop smiling, and just like those things. And I was like, yes, my partner was there and he was supporting it, but like he found a thing and I asked him to keep going, and then I moved my body in a way that it just like then worked out through my whole body and mind and soul. And so I think that's what I'm talking about when I say take responsibility. We need to learn our own bodies and learn like what our body's like, but also in the moment with somebody, something might be happening that you've never thought of before or that you've never experienced before, but hey, you like that. And an old part of your brain would say, oh, but his hand might be getting tired, or, I don't want to put him out in some way. Like he might not really be enjoying this. So take a pause in those moments and check in with yourself and just say, well, I'm really enjoying this. Let me see if he's okay with he or she is continuing to, pleasure me in this way. And, 9 times out of 10, when you ask for something, you're going to get it. So
yeah,
ask.
So I'm going to ask, what is your wildest fantasies?
Ooh, I love that question.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go first. So I've been like, this has been a very exciting new chapter in my life where I feel like I'm going through my next sexual awakening, and I've been reading a ton of erotica. I'm sure Willow is sick of hearing about it, but
I love it.
It has been so amazing. Like, I feel like there's something regarding my own sexuality that I am tapping into that is like a gift to me. I'm married and I share some of this with my husband, but like there's a lot of what's going on for me and my sexuality right now that is being inspired by these hot, steamy fucking books. I hope I can say fuck on your show. Okay.
Yes, it's about sex. You can say whatever you want to here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. So it's opening up parts of my body, and I find myself self-pleasuring. Like I was driving from Santa Cruz back up to Sacramento a couple weeks ago, and I probably masturbated in the truck like, I don't know, 12 times. I had this audio book playing, and I'm just like diddling myself the whole ride home.
While driving?
Opening cars next to me aren't gonna look over. Thank God I had
Or
some
hoping
towels
they
in the
do.
back seat. I mean, and I'm just like, I'm having these extended full body vaginal orgasms that are just like rippling, these blended experiences that are just rippling through my system, and it's been so fun. Like, I don't think I was ever connected to self-pleasuring before like I am now. And it's just waking up so much inside of me. And I'm really grokking the power of the mind in the way that I think I dismissed in the past because I was so more body centric. There are doors opening for me sexually that are coming from the mind and making their way through my body. That is like, I feel like I'm studying a whole new book of sex. And I love that it's solo sex. I mean, I will share this with my husband whenever he's interested, but I don't need to share it with him unless he wants to share in it. It's so cool to have this new relationship with my body. I'm just, I'm gobsmacked by the whole thing. So right now, back to fantasy. Okay, that was a setup. Sorry, that was a long setup. But okay, so like lately, it's these menage books where you've got like 3 dudes and 1 chick, and they're fucking her every which way. And all these books have anal sex in them, and I am just like, well, hello, bring on the anal play. And I'm actually disappointed when there's a book that doesn't have anal sex in it. And it's the whole process of like opening them up. Half the time, it's so like classic. It's a little like, wah, wah. They're always a virgin, which is so silly. But, and then it's like 2 brothers and a best friend. And it's just wild. I'm like, I would just love to stumble into a situation where the guys that are in these books, and let me tell you, they're all hot and delicious. Right. And I'm like, and then they all get married, which is another like really weird thing. You know, chicks are writing this book, right? So it's so weird. But like, I'm like, oh no, I do not want to marry and be like responsible for 3 cocks. Okay, that sounds like misery to me. But I would love a vacation with 3 cocks. I mean, take me for a night, take me for a week. I'll do a month, but then I'm out. Like, I do not want that kind of sexual work
like that.
Well, boy, it's a fun trip. So that's my fantasy right now.
Oh my God, that's adorable. You know, that's my fantasy too. I was going to say, I've always fantasized about being with 2 men at once, have not done it yet, have yet to have that experience. And as of late, it's been 3. Like, why not have all 3 going at the same time?
Fill her up, buttercup.
That's right. Yeah. And we just did a masterclass on the male prostate and anal play and all of that. And so that's really kind of been on our minds and on our radar. And then I've been doing some work with a friend where he does sexological body work. So we do a little tantra trade. And we're doing a lot of anal work, and it's really just been fantastic. And not only fantastic in pleasure and like heightened orgasmic experience, but also the chronic pain in my right lower back and SI joint that runs down my right leg is like 50 to 70% gone.
Wow.
After 2 sessions, you know, so there's a lot in that arena, in the anal arena, that we just don't even know is possible. But yeah, I've always wanted to be with 2 guys at once.
So do you guys both have butt plugs?
I do not. Do you?
I've got anal toys. I don't think
toys.
I currently have a butt plug. I have sort of played with them before, and it's been a long time. I've been thinking about them a lot because, you know, obviously I'm reading and there's like all this butt plug training with a virgin. You gotta write about it.
Stretch it.
And
it's just the tip.
Just the tip. That's right, sister. Just the tip. So no, I don't currently have a butt plug, but I'm not, you know, completely unfamiliar with them. I've never found them very comfortable.
Yeah, I've had them in the past, and I think there's a warming up. There's a certain like a willingness for the person in their mind. I think that's a big part of it too. And then there's got to be a lot of warm up and a lot of prep work to actually experience those in a pleasurable way. But
I have to say, I am up for the challenge.
I think Leah and I are ready for that.
I will do some homework, report back. I will graduate in size. If we can find a good, soft, silicone style butt plug that's not too hard on the plastic.
Yeah, I love anal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it as often as I probably would. Well, of course, because I'm celibate right now. But
Yeah.
like to the point to where I've had one, I like in the middle of sex, it slipped in. Like I don't know how wet I must have been for it to
Right.
just slip in there.
Right.
And comfortable because, like you said, it has to be some type of a willing relaxedness in there for it to even fit. So
Yeah.
that was nice though. I was like, oh, like, like he was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Neither one of us did, but it was fun.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I have to say, I was just telling a girlfriend today, I think my top 3 peak experiences have been anal sex, but it's
mhm,
also been the most challenging realm for me to be comfortable dancing in.
mhm.
Just I had a lot of apprehension, a ton of fear, like took a long time for me to get on the anal train. Because it's just there's a lot of hangups people have around it. And I was definitely one of those people with a lot of hangups before I
And
got
if
cozy.
you are listening and you are not ready or interested in anal, there is nothing wrong with you. It's
It
Yeah.
is
perfectly
nothing wrong
normal.
with it.
Yes.
Listen, the first time I did had anal done on me, I was in the army. I was probably about 19, 18 or 19, and his thing was huge. I mean, like
Like an
huge.
elephant cock.
Oh my
Good grief.
gosh. Like
Yes.
I mean, when I say huge, at one point he had split my vagina from him just being that big. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
Scary.
but
You
there
mean
is
like an episiotomy split? Like,
I
what do you
mean,
mean by
like
split?
literally, it was like split, like not like
Like, did you get a tear?
Tear?
it was like, yeah, I was torn. Like
Wow.
it was crazy
Wow.
Wow.
because I had never
Perineal
ever
tear.
experienced that before.
Wow.
But he was probably the biggest guy that I've ever been with as
My
well.
God. And you let
But
him go
like,
in the rear, huh?
oh my God. Well, like you said, and this is what I was about to say, it was definitely a workup to it, a finger, a thumb, of course, if
Right.
his penis is that big, so are his hands. So it was
Right.
a workup to it, but it was also somebody that I was extremely comfortable with. And at 19, I was really exploring. I was in the army, we was in Korea. It was like, why not?
Right. Cool.
It's amazing.
So what is the wildest thing that you've tried, Dr. Willow?
The wildest thing that I've
Yes.
tried. Ooh, well, I mean, I've been in lots of threesomes. I don't know about like I think here's what I'm gonna, is totally not gonna sound like something wild, but for me it was, right? It's vulnerable.
Mhm.
Was penetrating a man, like penetrating a man's heart and soul while he was penetrating my body. Like I was inside of him just as much as he was inside of me.
Hmm.
And I think that was what was so wild about that, was just it was such a completion, like such a union, such a profound experience of no separation, no division, non-duality. So it was very much that like enlightened, orgasmic, prolonged experience. Yeah.
So what was that like? Can you explain that for our listeners? Because I wanna start. In our community, we call it soul snatching. They talk about snatching souls. So
Wow.
I want to know
Interesting.
what that experience is like, so
I
that
love that. That reminds me too, in the Tao, there's a book, it's called The White Tigress, and it's the Taoist priestesses of old and probably even of now in the Wudang Mountains basically would like get young men and they would vamp their chi, right? They would like because young men have so much jing chi, sexual energy, and so they would vamp or like suck in their sexual energy, and it would prolong their beauty. It was like the fountain of youth, they'd put it on their just they'd really revel in the jing energy of youth, of young men under a certain age. And so there is sort of that, when you're in that depth of connection with somebody, there's like no separation between your Jing Shen. Shen is spirit and Jing is sexual energy. So your spirit and your sexual energy is just like this big mixing pot of what's going on between you. And what did you ask me?
how did you cultivate that experience?
Oh, how did I cultivate that experience? Well, I was deeply in love with this person, and we'd been practicing cervical orgasms for several months, and so we were getting pretty adept at like where the cock and the cervix come together, and it was like the chalice and the blade, and there was like this suction that was happening at the head of the glands and the tip of the os of the cervix, and it just felt like just the most incredible magical union. Like there was no time and space. Like what else in the world are we supposed to be doing other than like this? You know?
Right.
Who gives a shit about anything else?
That's
And
so cool.
it was just, yeah, profound experience.
And I ask that because I know in some of my most spiritual sexual events, it is like I'm massaging their back. Of course, I always tighten my vagina muscles when they are coming. And so with that, and then massaging them and making them feel like a person, you know, like somebody cares about them deeply. And because I do, of course, I know I have at least one experience where the guy said he felt like it was an outer body experience. So I was like, okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
And Leah, what has the wildest thing that you've tried been?
Well, gosh, that's such an interesting subjective question. I think some of my most cosmic experiences have been on psychedelics and making love, where, you know, you're just, everything is heightened. Like the senses are like amplified by 100. And there is this feeling, this like cosmic connection where each breath is shared, each pulsation in the body is shared, this complete dissolving of where do I end and where do you begin? And these like epic contractive, expansive states of like pleasure rippling throughout the nervous system and then beyond. Like, you know, when you're a kid and you have sparklers and you spell your name with the sparkler and you get all those tracers, it's like feeling rainbow tracers coming out of your field in the state of orgasm. Like your orgasm is so big and it's so shared that it's being breathed back and forth, and all these colors are rippling through you, and the next thing you know, it just feels like I feel like I'm drenched. The bed is covered in female ejaculation. We're just slipping and sliding. We're in and out, and then you kind of bring your head up for air and you start laughing and going, can you believe this shit that is going on right now? Like, and you're just in a bliss state. And so you're coming in and out of these like depth realms, and then you come up and you're just laughing so hard, and you can't believe you get to, it feels like life's a miracle in those moments.
So who sleeps in the wet spot?
Not me.
You get a splash pad, and
I do have a splash pad. We have stacks of towels nearby. We're always switching them out. I've got it down to science.
A lot of laundry, lots and lots of
laundry. Yeah.
And regularly too, like there's no breaks in between them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So do you ladies have a kink?
Good question.
I definitely like choking, being tied up, spanked. I'm a fan. I think Leah and I both are like right on the precipice and edge of like more BDSM coming through. I think she's a little bit more on the psychological side of things, and I like the physical stuff. I like to be. I love what's it called? Shadavari or something. It's no, that's an herb, but it's where they tie. It's Japanese.
Oh, shibari.
Shibari, yeah, thank you. Where they tie you up. Oh my God, that is so fucking sexy and hot. I'm a big fan of that.
Oh,
I saw that firsthand the first time I went. We'll talk about that in a second. I saw that the first time a couple of months ago at a sex party that I went to, but it was more of a spiritual based sex party than some of the other ones that I've experienced. And Leah, your kink.
Yeah, so Willow's right. I'm more into the psychological games than I am into sensation. Probably because I grew up being spanked, and like, I don't know, the idea of pain is not a turn on. It's kind of a scary place for me.
Right.
Where my mind kind of and my body opens is playing with the forbidden. So it's like the naughtiness and inappropriate, I just love being inappropriate. And what I'm really curious about, like right now, something I want to study more is how does kink lead to healing? Because I'm really curious about the fetish sizing of fears, where we take something that we're really deeply afraid of and we confront it. And through the confrontation of it, it turns into an orgasm. It's like going through the eye of the needle. It's so tight and so small. We're so afraid. And oh my God, it's my worst fear. And then suddenly, boom, it opens and blossoms into like epic pleasure. And I know that framework from a tantric realm, but in Tantra, it's very poetic. It's very reverent. It's filled with cherishing and devotion. And it's, it's so
all
pretty.
Angels and butterflies.
Yes, it's really, it's the poet's way. It's really looking at love from an art form. And for my mind to kind of take a look at this whole nother method and seeing that the same outcome can be true, I'm really sort of curious about how I can confront my own fears. I'll give you an example. Through the podcast, we've had different experts in and talking about, I never understood the humiliation part of kink, like how someone would want to be just like cock torture and ball torture and emasculated and your dick so small and all this stuff. Like I just seemed mean spirited, my Pollyanna just couldn't get there until I started looking at it from my lens of my fear of being a slut in high school and being like having some sort of label of being humiliated publicly for my sexuality, which I was really terrified of as a young person, probably because, stuff with the trauma and religion. And so for me to be at a place now where it's like, yeah, call me a dirty little slut. Yeah, bend me over the fucking couch and give me a few spanks that don't hurt. And, but really like talk nasty, dirty, foul. Like I want to wipe your mouth out and then kiss it because you're so damn foul with that mouth. Like I just want all that dirty nastiness just spewed all over me. And this is so novel. This is so weird because I was never that person. That shit scared me, but now it opens me. And I think that is like the power of us becoming more conscious and awake when it comes to sex, is because there are things that we've been raised to be afraid of can turn into things that can open our whole world up, and we can have access to so much more beauty and really fucking relief, because life is hard.
Yeah.
Life can
and
be
we need
so
a break.
Filled with pain.
Yes. Yeah.
And to know that we got pleasure inside that's free. It doesn't cost anything. It is free. Like we have this huge reservoir, this unlimited supply of renewable, hot, sexy energy. Then we just got to figure out how to tap into it.
Right.
And I think that that's the thing that all of us who are sex educators are charged with, because I know when I began, it wasn't simple. I didn't even know what I wanted. So how could I ask for it? I mean, it has taken exposing myself to different things all the time to discover what is it that I want to try? What is kink? Like all those things. I spend time thinking about, because I want everyone to have an easier time accessing language that helps them discover their desires so that they can therefore fulfill them. Yes. Sorry, that's a long answer about my kink.
No, that was perfect, because it's necessary for people to understand both the logic and the differences, because both of you ladies have different types of kinks, and people are, again, they're stuck in a box often, so they think kink and they only think of BDSM or.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaci, not your typical clinical doctor. I am an ordained minister, but not your typical minister. I am also a certified life coach, love coach, sex coach, solution focus coach, transformation coach, and more. I have a whole lot of information that I would like to help you grow with. And I hope that soon I can help you be the best you that you can be. Confidence, spirituality, and purpose. That's wholeness, complete.
Something that is physical and not necessarily the psychological portions of it, and being talked to. So your answer was very educational for those that will, hear it and listen and be like, okay, well, it gives them permission to explore their kink and the meaning and reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, like I like to wear underwear, like pair of panties, and then like a dress, and then be sort of molested underneath the dress. But like you can't really ever take off the panties. You can go around the panties. You can pet on top of the panties, but there's something about the layer of the panties that opens up the forbidden in my mind. Or I can play out a theme around stranger danger, which I think is really hot.
And it's so crazy that you say that, because sometimes when I am looking at porn, I am looking at the porn that where it's somebody in the bed with you that's not necessarily supposed to be in the bed, but then they start touching all on you. And I think some of that is probably, I don't want to say trauma related, but experience based, because when I was younger, a lot of times it was somebody sneaking in the bed trying to get some that wasn't supposed to get some.
Right. I know that's where mine comes from, actually, because there is this thing called core erotic themes, where most of us have access to a part of their sexuality, sensuality that got imprinted at probably an inappropriate age that causes us to feel something about shame. And so that's often a door into our psyche. This core erotic theme is a doorway in. And so I know all my forbidden shit is about inappropriate desires, but I think that's what's so powerful, because I can take something that I was out of control of as a child, that was really scary, that was painful, that created a whole narrative around trauma for me. But as an adult who's done a lot of healing work, that can now be a doorway into erotic freedom, where in the past it was like erotic jail. And so I really dig that there's that juxtaposition that we can actually be turned on by something that might have been painful from the past. I feel like it's a way to switch the story.
Yes.
We become more powerful. We get power over that story. Because I love the porn that's like, oh, they're messing around with that with that woman who's asleep. And they shouldn't be messing around with her, but she's pretending she's asleep, and her whole body's opening.
Listen, that's how I normally have, like, when I am in a relationship and I am in the bed, I'm definitely always scooching up, because I'm gonna toot my ass on your dick, and eventually we're gonna have sex, because I'm going to make you want to do it, because that is one of the best sex experience.
Well, that dream state, that in-between place between sleeping and awake is really delicious. You're warm, your muscles are all relaxed, like all sorts of cool, dreamy, awake, asleep stuff happens. Yeah,
I could tell you've been listening to a lot of erotica, because the way that you're talking is like,
I know, everything starts moving.
She always talks that way. She's very
I talk with my body.
She is an actress of sexuality.
But wait a minute, because the whole time you've been talking, I keep saying in my mind, like, man, y'all could do voice acting, because the way y'all talk and your voices are so, now you're beautiful. So you can do any type of acting, both of you ladies. But when I hear, Leah, when I hear you talk, it reminds me of like somebody off of Full House or something, or Fuller House.
Cute.
Oh my God. Sometimes I listen, because I do a lot of editing for our stuff, and I'm like, oh, that child's voice of mine. It's so high pitched. God, why can't I have like Mayor Simone's sultry?
It's her deep sultry, sexy voice.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to turn into a smoker so I can have that.
There you go.
Yes. And then Dr. Willow, she over here with that calming, soothing.
Yeah. I got the yoga. I got the yoga teacher voice.
She's got the tranquility water and the fiery flames.
She's the yang to my yin.
So please tell me about a one-night stand experience.
Oh, I'll tell you about a one-night stand that turned into a 7-year relationship. Yeah, I mean, God, I think it had been 6 months since I'd had sex, which I'm on 5 right now. I'm like, okay, I can't really go more than 6 months. It's like,
I've been waiting for 7 years.
God, do not know how people go that
I'm deprived. I don't have an attitude problem, because I do self-pleasure, but I feel the depravity of me not having sex. My hips be hurting, and every exercise when I go to the doctor, guess what the exercise is? Things that I would do if I was fucking. I need to be fucking. So I'm like, wait a minute, you want me to curl my hips?
Okay, well, it is time to break.
You want me to fuck back to a ghost. So whatever ghost is around so I can practice these exercises and strengthen my hips and my stomach, please come on in.
Oh no.
Might be time to break the pattern. I can feel mine coming up again too. So yeah, it had been 6 months, and it was a friend of mine who actually used to do some business with, and it was his birthday, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going out with these people, people that I knew peripherally but not that well, and we were all out and dance floor and having some drinks, and it was all good. And there was another girl, and I was like, oh, I think he's into her, I think he's flirting with her. And so I kind of shut it down and pulled back, and then by the end of the night I was like, oh no, he's interested in me. Okay, great. So I was like, well, let's do a one night stand. This will be great. I'll give him birthday sex, and then that will be that. I didn't really think I was interested in him as a relationship. I didn't think, because I sort of put him in a category of like those people, because I'd known him for a long time peripherally, and he was into a lot of things that I wasn't into. And so, yeah, so that one night stand turned into another night and another night and another night. And he helped me go buy a car like the next day. I'm like, why are you showing up like a boyfriend now? This is weird, And then he wanted to take me out to dinner. And I was like, and I said to him at one point, I was like, you don't have to take me on dates. We can just have sex. And he was like, oh no, I want to take you. Like, I want to spend this more romantic time with you as well.
That thing must have been wet.
Yeah, right. It was a pretty hot and wet night. Yeah, that was it. So that was 7 years. 7 years together.
Wow,
I would call it a successful relationship. I want to say, I don't think that all relationships that end mean they're not a success. Like, I've had very successful relationships that have ended. I'm still very good friends with him. We've had a very successful separation, and we co-own our little puppy together. So just a lot. There's so much possibility when we open up our minds and our eyes and our reimagine, like, what is going to be possible if we do this in a way that works for us rather than in a way that we ought to.
Right. And Leah?
Okay.
You're married, so if you don't have a one night stand story,
tell us about the one in the hotel room. I think he was a police officer or something. Investigator.
Yes. Okay.
Or don't tell us about that one.
Gosh, I had one. So there was there was one I was going to say. Okay, I'll tell the one about the Fed. Okay. The Fed. So I don't know if I want to tell that one.
Mm-mm. A little bit too secret.
Well, there was. Oh yes. Okay. I got him.
No editing. So
there's so many. I have so many to choose from. So many to choose from.
I really don't have that many.
Yes, I've had a lot.
We've already went over that there would be no editing. So if there's anything that you would prefer not to have out there, please
don't say
that story.
Duly noted. So there was this guy in high school, right? And he was like this really hot guy, and it was not the girl that got the hot guys. It just wasn't me. Always wanted them, but they didn't seem to notice. And but this one guy, he was also unusual, and I liked that about him. He's kind of a character. And there was this girl that I knew in high school, and I always admired her. Like, she was really beautiful, and she was really smart, like, queen of the debate team and super academic. And she was going to go to some Ivy League crazy school, but she was also really artistic. She had it all. The bitch had it all. And she had like this amazing long hair. And she was the type of girl, like, I remember going on this trip with her, and we did mushrooms out in the forest. And, she was the girl that would be basically naked. She had the long hair that would cover her boobs. She looked like She
Lady
walked out of
Godiva.
a 1960s Hollywood set. You know, she was just gorgeous. And so I really admired her. And I knew they had dated off and on for a couple of years. So, you know, fast forward a few years, we're out of high school. And somehow I turned his eye and I was like, oh, how nice. Oh, I didn't know you would ever be interested in me. But he wasn't interested as in like, come be my girlfriend.
He just wanted to fuck
And this
you.
was during a very heavily drinking phase in my life, but he would like knock on my window. And I just remembered this one winter, and we probably had sex twice, but this one night really, I'll never forget it because it was like a winter storm. It was in Michigan. I'm this hippie kid. I'm wearing these long, crazy muumuus, and we're trudging through this blizzard to his house. And he turns on a hot bubble bath and pours me a glass of wine. Now, these are the years when I'm drinking like amber beer and ports and like all this crazy heavy ass beer stouts. You know, I was not a wine drinker at this point. I'm like, 20 years old, and he brings me a glass of wine and he draws me a hot bath after this walk through the blizzard. And I feel like I'm being treated like a lady. And then we just had really, really great sex, but he was really fun. And then I remember I wasn't home, but my roommate said, oh yeah, you got the knock on the window again. But I wasn't there. And then at that time it was to my great shame, but now it's like to my great delight. It was one of these times where I had sex with two men in the same day at different times and nobody knew of each other. At first it felt so scandalous. It was like, oh my God, I'm such a dirty girl. I had a cock in me this morning and then I had a different cock in me this evening, and these two guys were friends. Okay. But they weren't super tight friends, but they would kind of play guitar with each other every once in a while. And so Sean found out and was none too happy. But look, Sean had no business being unhappy because that boy was a bad boy. So, yes, I should write 7 volumes of my one night stand experiences because God knows.
Yeah, I think your first book is going to be an erotica book, honey.
And that's
perhaps I'll become I'll change careers and I'm going to be an erotica novelist.
Yes. Yeah, you're doing the prep work right now, and just all the research for it.
Right.
So, sexual preferences and your relationship dynamic.
Willow?
Sexual preferences? What do you mean by that? Like, what do I prefer in sexuality?
Yes.
As far as like monogamy, poly, that kind of thing?
No, we haven't gotten to that question yet. What is your sexual preference? Do you prefer men, women, both?
Oh, okay.
And what is your preference in relationship dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been hetero primarily. I have definitely played with women as well. And I think my preference, I really love men. I really love that. I really love that yin yang union. I love the poles, the opposite poles. And I'd say that's my preference. Yeah. And in relationship, I have been only in relationship with men. I can imagine being in a relationship with a woman, but it sounds so fucking complicated. Like, I just don't know if I would want to go down that road. I guess it depends on the woman, there's a word, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's like where you're just attracted to the person rather than their gender. And I definitely can identify with that too. Yeah, like there have been women that I'm like, oh my God, I just love you so much and I'm attracted to you. But haven't totally gone down that road. I don't know if I will. Yeah.
Romantically, I'm attracted to men. So I think I consider myself a cisgendered woman. But I have a lot of experience working with women and supporting them and helping them with their sexuality. So I'm comfortable around a vulva. I know what to do to a pussy. I know where the G spot is and the cervix is and the sacred spot is. And, I have a lot of experience applying sexual awakening and healing practices to bodies, whether that's men or women. But I don't have a lot of polarity with women. So like sometimes women will contact me wanting to work with me because they think that I can teach their body how to be orgasmic. And I can teach them all about being orgasmic. I can set them on the path of discovering how to become orgasmic within their body. But if they're expecting me to give them an orgasm, they're likely going to be disappointed because I don't have enough polarity with women to generate that kind of chemistry to light up that type of arousal. If they come to me already connected to their arousal, with already a stream of an orgasmic pathway that they're familiar with, they're going to have orgasms.
Right.
But they're not. But so I always, if a woman's wanting me to transfer my Shakti to them, I usually send them to somebody else who has better, who's more bisexual, who has an ability to transfer that charge. So I'm really clear that, like, I wish I was wired that way, because let me tell you, I have tried. I have tried over and over and over again, because I'm jealous of all my bi brothers and sisters out there who can just get lit up with everything and everyone. I'm like, that is so not fair. I would like a dose of that, please. So I wish I was more wired that way, but at least I feel like I can have intimacy that way when called for. But it's not how I would choose to be in partnership. I don't think I would be happy being romantically committed to a woman. Like I am with men. And in terms of, like, did I answer your question? Am I missing a part of it?
No, you answered the question. The next question is about your thoughts on poly.
Yeah. I was poly for the majority of my adult life, and then just got hurt too much. I think what I discovered about myself is that when I start pair bonding with someone, I want to have that safe, comfortable space where I'm not wrestling with feeling threatened all the time. And jealousy is not something that feels good to me. So I've just really learned I'm not going to put myself through hell, but that doesn't mean that I'm not open to other experiences. I mean, even my work in my private practice in nature isn't totally monogamous.
Right.
I like touching bodies, but I like having a container for it where everyone knows where the edges are. And there are certain things that I'm only going to participate and practice with my husband, because I want us to have something that's special, that's just ours. And I like being safe. But sometimes the cost of being safe is you sort of lose out on some of the mystery, on some of the charge, because you get really comfortable with someone. So, that's just cause for trying to be more creative. But I'm really open. Like right now, we've been together for a total of 8 years, married for 6. And I was very clear I wanted monogamy going into the marriage, but we've both been are open-minded. Like, we might change our minds, and there's enough space inside of ourselves that we can navigate changing our minds. And I'm really glad that I have a container for still expressing myself sexually with other people, even though it doesn't look like poly. Like, I'm not going to get into complicated relationships with people where I'm going to have sex with them whenever they want, I have a really kind of small space that I work in regards to sexuality that has rules, but that I get to express myself in. So I would say monogamish is my current status.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Willow?
I've always been a hard no to polyamory, because I feel like I have so much other stuff I want to do in this world. And any polyamorous relationship that I've ever witnessed, it's like they are constantly working at this thing, and the rules and the boundaries and the emotions and the drama and the da-da-da-da. And I've just been like, you know what? I don't not have chi for that. I don't want to put my chi toward that. So recently I was in a relationship where he was kind of exploring in a polyamorous way. And I was like, great, I'm down for non-monogamy. So my definition of non-monogamy is like, I'm going to have sexual experiences with clients, with other people that I choose to, but I'm not going to be opening my heart to other people. I'm not going to be choosing people to have sexual experiences with that I might potentially just go heart direction with. Whereas he was, and I felt so secure in our love and in our connection that I was okay with it. And I learned the hard way that is not a go for me. That is no longer going to be a viable way to play in a relationship. So now I'm at the point, even with non-monogamy, I feel that I'm not quite as open to that as I once was, but I have been monogamish very successfully, where it's like, okay, my definition of not of monogamish is we are in this together. You and I have this deep bond. We have this security and this connection, and anything that we do, either together with another person, or I go to a tantra training for 10 days, or you go to something and have some kind of experience, it's to bring us closer together. Like that's the point of it, is to bring us into a deeper union and bond with one another. So, and that has been how I have navigated monogamish in the past with my 7-year guy. So it did work well, and it's nice to not have jealousy in your body. And I've always really been so grateful. Like I've never really had a jealous bone in my body. And anyone who does have jealousy, I would highly recommend not doing any of that, because it's just going to be a shit show. It's a recipe for disaster. If you do not trust yourself and you do not trust your partner, you should not be getting into poly or non-monogamy unless you want to blow up the relationship, because that's what's going to happen.
I agree. Unchecked jealousy within relationships can definitely be detrimental. I've seen some poly relationships that seem to work, but they still have jealousy. But what jealousy is natural. It's not uncommon. It's not something that shouldn't exist at all, but it's how it exists that makes it either healthy or unhealthy. So do you guys go to swinger parties or sex clubs?
Been to a few.
Yeah, I've explored, but hasn't really been a lifestyle I've been attracted to. But I have a feeling I'm going to be expanding my horizon. Like I feel like the next 20 years, as I get like older, and I can see myself going down to Florida, going down to Fort Lauderdale, where there's lots of swinger parties, and just seeing what it's all about. I haven't done a lot of swinging parties. I've done a lot of love-ins, a lot of like tantric orgies. And I have to say, have been uncomfortable at most of them, unless I'm the star of the show.
Right.
Then I'm like, okay, I'm going to show everybody where the secret spot is. Ready for Amrita, and I'm like, I can show up as the star, and that's like where I can get comfortable. But I find that really interesting, right? It's like this, where the ego kind of comes in and like finds their own strategy. Like if I were to drop all that, who would I be in those environments? I have played with that too. And it's been someone who's a little insecure and uncomfortable and sort of on guard. Who's going to approach me? Am I going to want them or not want them? So I've noticed that there's a part of my sexual persona. It's like I can show up for anyone. I can work with someone who is 500 pounds, who's had so much trauma. I can fall in love with them. I can worship their body. I can hold them. I can be there for every stage of an awakened experience. But if I'm there for me, I have a really hard time finding my like desire and opening and allowing that to be for me. If it's for other people, much easier for me to show up in those environments. So I find like that whole like awareness of my own limitations and sort of like the masks I put on in order to show up, like I wrestle with that. So I find myself given the choice, no thanks.
Right.
I don't know that I want to like confront all those parts, so there's Leah and her therapeutic minded answer.
I love it. Yeah. I've been to some, second base parties and then some more hardcore parties. So sort of like the spectrum. And I just, like I said, I love humans and I love human sexuality. So I do definitely walk into those spaces with my clinician mind. I'm like, wow, how interesting, how fascinating.
Right.
Wow, those people over there are just fucking wildly and madly, and then these people are in their like romantic love zone sipping tea, and eye gazing, and it's just
oh my god, that guy is eating her ass right now, like oh my god, and then that's happening over there. Sometimes I'm just like,
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And I'm a very sensitive person as well. So I usually have to take several days to kind of like clear and come back to my own core and center. So, again, I don't have that much energy or time to put into that arena of the sexuality world at this point. Maybe it will change. I'm sure, well, everything does change. So, but yeah, it's not a huge interest.
So last year I started doing, well, I got kind of thrown into my first little swinger sex party thing.
Yeah.
I was doing pool parties last year. I was like, anybody's doing a pool party, I'm going. And this one pool party, I showed up and the guy was naked in the pool. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, why is he naked in the pool? But nobody else is saying anything. So I'm sitting there to myself like, there's some weird shit going on here. I don't know. What did I just walk into? But that let me know that it was something. So I left, and on my way leaving, somebody was like, so are you a swinger? And I was like, no, like, what are you talking about? And then I came back and he was like, yeah, so after the pool party is over, there's a play in the house. And I was like, play? And then it was like everything just came to me because I had been in the house like 3 or 4 times. I was drinking, so I was peeing. And in the house, I had noticed it was 2 rooms with both of them had 2 beds, but it just, I'm talking about, I don't know where my mind was because it just did not. And then turn around in the other room, it's a bed right there too. So it's really a house full of beds and maybe like 1 couch and then the kitchen. And that was it. But I missed it. I missed the whole thing.
You missed the whole thing. Would you want to? Is it something that you would like to pursue? So
I stayed. The guy was like, well, stay and I'll show you around. I make sure you're good. I stayed. I enjoy the environment. I've actually gone to some knowingly now. The problem that I have is I normally leave before the actual sex part starts, and then I miss all of the action because if I get there at a certain time, if I get there like 10 and they don't start playing until like 12, then shit, I'm ready to go in 2 hours. I don't stay places like super long. And then the times that I've stayed, somehow I always miss the fun. I went to Savannah over St. Patrick's Day weekend, and it was with a group of people that are in the lifestyle. Cool. And this is the first time that I experienced seeing the sexual parts happening. But listen, they had an Airbnb and they was already sucking dick when we got there. Like as soon as we got in, they was playing games, sucking dick on the couch. I was like, wow, okay, let me just pace myself here because I personally am not the type of person that goes straight in for sex. I got to get to know you a little bit. Yeah. I got to kind of build some type of camaraderie there other than just, okay, I met you and now I don't have sex like that. So
yeah. I think you're
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you're really exemplifying the importance of listening to yourself in a situation, in an environment like that. And these parties are happening more and more worldwide, around the states and worldwide, really. And so it's, you might get an invitation one day, and it's really important to know that just because you're going to a sex party doesn't mean you have to have sex with anyone. It doesn't mean you have to suck anyone's cock or get anything. It just can be to experience, to observe, and to notice inside of yourself. Is this opening me or is this closing me? Like what's happening to my nervous system based on this environment? And then getting a little bit curious about that. Well, why is it closing me? What is it? Is it something inside of me, or am I just not interested in it? Is it authentically just not an interest for me?
I think for myself, well, all of the environments that I've gone in, it's definitely some clear guidelines as far as no means no and making sure that everybody feels safe. So that is a great thing. But I think it's me, and it doesn't close me off. I love the environment. I like the people. One, because I know that people going to a sex party are not going to be violent. There will not be any shootouts. There will not be no fighting. It's going to be nothing crazy in that nature. But the sexual energy, the adult conversations are things that I enjoy. And that is something that you don't get in most communities because people are religiously conditioned to minimize who they are to fit into everybody else's box. Right. But in these environments, people are free. So I really like it, and I think that I will continue to go. I actually had one of my friends the other day, he asked me like, well, why do you go? I just don't understand. And I was like, I mean, one, I'm a sex coach and a sex educator. So being in these environments should be comfortable for me. But then also, in order for me to be a great educator, I have to have some type of field experience. It's like
Yeah.
being a nurse and you've never been being an RN and you've never been a CNA. Yeah, they taught you everything to be an RN in nursing school, but there are some things that you wouldn't have learned as a CNA and an LPN that would have better prepared you to
Yeah.
be a RN. So he don't get it because he can't fathom, one, that I've been celibate for so long. A lot of people have this thing like, well, what do you do? Like, I mean, I'm celibate, but I definitely am touching myself on a
Yeah.
regular basis on the, most part. But these environments are, for me, it's a very explorative and awakening experience
Yeah.
because really you don't find in the Black community, people are very ashamed of sex mostly. And so a lot of the things that people in other communities will try, Black people like, I ain't doing that. And I'm like,
Right.
well, I want to be around people that are open to doing more than the normal. And outside of that box. And it's not easy to find that type of community within the Black culture, but it's definitely there. It's just people coming out of those shells and those bounds of shame that they have been conditioned to see when it comes to sex. So yeah, the sex parties, I enjoy them. It's really an eye opener.
I think you bring up so many great points. And when I reflect back on my experience, my experience at going to like sex parties and all that space was at like a much younger age where I really wasn't sure what was expected of me. And so there was fear that it was going to be like a free for all, or that I would have to say yes because I wouldn't want to hurt somebody's feelings, and not knowing how to like navigate people coming onto me who I didn't want to play with. Right. And then being confronted with, is it okay to look? And so, as life evolves and I'm a different sexual person now, I do look forward. I do have sort of these like images and ideas of like, there's a part of me that kind of wants to experience being like the sacrificial goddess on a table, and like all like 10 men come to like give me pleasure, and I don't get the choice of who's giving me pleasure. Like I kind of want to explore that. I would have never been ready to even conceptualize that 15 years ago. But there is a place, whether right now it's only in my imagination, but I also can imagine being ready for that at some point in this lifetime, and I also feel much more comfortable in my own beingness around my choices. Like the disease to please is like been a really strong wire in my nervous system. It's been one of the hardest things I've ever had to grapple with, is being comfortable saying no. When you've been, as a part of conditioning, as a part of culture, depending on where you're raised, I was raised to be a yes sir and a yes ma'am. I wasn't allowed to say no. No was against the law. And so like just going through years of discovering what no feels like in my body, saying it to myself out loud. I mean, I went through rituals just having to anchor that into me. So it's so interesting how we can be on this journey, and something that I might have been like repulsed by, 15, 20 years ago is now starting to open me. I just think that that's really exciting. And I hope people who are listening to this, if you've had experiences in this conversation, listening to the three of us talk, and you've noticed sensations of like either like ickiness or shame or discomfort or titillation and excitement and like yumminess, to just hold all of it loosely. I think sometimes we put so much meaning behind sensations when really, if we're just curious about it instead of judging it, man, like life just gets to be yummier and less serious.
Yeah. And
I think the things I took serious as a younger person, I'm so glad to be shedding that now.
Yeah, you get to, that's the point of all of this, is to evolve, to expand. And we do that through our imagination first, and through just, thinking like, oh, what else is possible? Someone else is experiencing that pleasure from that particular style of sexuality. interesting. I wonder if I ever could, or no, I feel like I never could. Okay, that's fine too. What's behind that though? You know.
Yeah, and it's fun. Like my trainer just moved to Florida, and she started going to these big giant places that have like they're huge sex parties, like massive pools and people are partying and all these different rooms doing all this different stuff. And sometimes people pair up and sometimes it's a big group. And I love hearing about all these adventures she's having. It's so fun to kind of live vicariously through her and notice when she's telling me about something that she saw, like, does that open me? Does that close me? Just like Dr. Willow said, like, would I be open to that? Ooh, would that like freak me out? Would I want to go hide in my room? I don't know.
And she's in her 60s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I love
See,
that.
I didn't
See,
even
love
start
that.
exploring sex to an extent outside of regular sex and relationships until I was like 30, until I went into divorce mode. Then it was like more about self-pleasure and understanding. I hadn't had a dildo. I don't like dildos, but that was the first time I got one was at an older age. So it really wasn't a thrill for me. I like the grasp of a man. Like I want to
Yeah.
feel him pulsate. And all the things that makes him are the things that I need that bring satisfaction to me, the pleasure of him. So I'm a pleaser as well. So I was thinking about something else, but I don't remember what it was. Is there any advice that you would give for our listeners when it comes to exploration, acceptance, and things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, exploration and acceptance are great things. They go hand in hand. Acceptance is really medicine of the heart. So there's
that.
there's something about and in Chinese medicine, the mind lives in the heart. So there's this Shen, this spirit of the mind. There's our prefrontal cortex, which is the one that's like, do this and don't do that. And if you do this, you're bad. And if you do that, you're good. And da 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 da. But then there's the mind, which is like soul mind, right? Spirit, soul mind, Shen, and it's very much connected to the heart. So when we accept where we are at on our journey, and we get clients all the time who are like, God, I've been listening to your podcast. I don't even know where to begin. Like, I feel like I don't even know my body or my sexuality at all. It's like, well, begin with where you're at. Like, just accept where you're at. This is a practice, and we've been on it for 20 years, and it's something that when you accept where you're at, when you meet yourself where you're at, then you're going to be able to move forward in a sustainable way. If you go too far too fast, you're going to short circuit, and you won't really expand and evolve into who you're becoming in a way that feels digestible to you. So that's a great question. I think acceptance and evolution and expansion go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think watch for judgments. If you notice that you're judging yourself, get curious. Wow, that's really interesting that I would be that hard on myself. Wow, that's really interesting that I would talk back to myself in such an ugly way. Like really get curious. And if you notice that you're judging somebody else and you have thoughts like, oh, they're disgusting, or there's something wrong with them, or they should be ashamed of themselves. If you find yourself being hateful and judgmental, whether that is out loud or in your own mind, question that. Get really, really curious about that, because it's through curiosity that we can transform judgment. And we have lived in a world filled with so much judgment that creates so much separation between us. And love is the thing. Like if we could start bringing our attention back to love and what we have in common and the humanity of each other, then our hearts open. And then our bodies open, and then we can get to the truth. And the truth is that we're not separate. The consciousness that lives in me is the same consciousness that lives in you. And although this consciousness is seeing the world through these eyes, that consciousness is seeing the world through your eyes. We are each other. And I am more curious and more devoted to wanting to explore that than to see all the ways with which we are separate and different, and we have to like not like each other. My heart like breaks over that. And so I just want people to be inspired by by the beauty in sex. Like there's so much beauty in sex, but we've been spoon-fed an idea that sex is dirty and scary and dangerous and will create bad things, when the opposite is more true than that bullshit. That is such a small part of the distortion of sexuality. And so the last thing I want to say about like judgments and watching yourself and being committed to being a different person around all of this is fucking, if you spot it, you got it, baby. So sit with that for a minute. You want to judge someone else? Guess what? That's probably your kink. Why don't you try owning it first? And let's like be in this together and make spaces safe for people to be authentically connected to desire. Because desire is not what's going to hurt you. It's your attachment to the desire that hurts you. So allow yourself to be fully in desire. Just don't take it so seriously.
Yeah, there's so much chi and desire. I mean, think about it. If you are sitting on the couch and you're like, I really desire that chocolate cake, it's in the fridge, it's going to motivate you to get up off of the couch and go to the fridge and get the chocolate cake and get the fork and get it in your mouth. I mean, there's a lot of movement in desire. So if we could actually distill desire and like put it into a capsule, we could heal the world with it. Yeah. It's a lot of chi. There's a lot. And so a lot of times, you know, I'll have male clients and they'll be like, oh my God, I want to fuck you so bad. I'm like, I know. Doesn't that feel good? Like hone that desire. Like, what is
you
that?
You can't fuck me.
You're not going to get
you desire it.
Yeah, like, okay, draw that desire to your adrenal glands, draw that desire to your heart, draw that desire to your pineal gland and your brain, and see what you can do with that chi, that desire.
So ladies, how can people find you and reach you and watch your podcast?
Well, they can go to the Sex Reimagined website, sexreimagined.com. They can also find us on every, you know, Apple and
streaming app,
all the ones, streaming app, Spotify, all of those. And my website is also drwillowbrown.com, and Leah is moreloveworks.com.
Are you on social media?
We're on social media. We are on TikTok and we are on Instagram
and YouTube
at Sex Reimagined. And then you can just put in our names, Dr. Willow Brown or Leah Piper, and you can find our individual accounts. And we are on YouTube. All of our podcasts are filmed. And so if you want to watch us talk with our bodies, you can find us there. And we've got really, really great, like, affordable courses. We do a lot of oftentimes free trainings and really affordable master classes. So for people who are interested in becoming a more masterful at the art of sexual love, we got you covered.
Yeah.
And you guys mentioned an event that you have coming up. What is that event? Give us some details.
We're going to be doing a TeleSummit 2.0. This will be our second TeleSummit, and we'll be interviewing all kinds of incredible experts. And this year, we're really focusing on eliminating erotic shame, erotic suffering, and bringing forth a greater capacity for pleasure. Pleasure as a birthright. I mean, women, did you guys know this little factoid from Dr. Willow? Women actually have 75% more circulating oxytocin in their bodies than men do. And so, and we know oxytocin is the love hormone, it's the pleasure hormone. And so we've got a lot more of it circulating in our bodies. So if you're in a vulva owner's body, then pleasure as a birthright is kind of an understatement.
So your event will be at past when this comes out, but will there be a recorded version where people can go back and look at it?
Yeah, we always have that for sale afterwards, after it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate this. Was such a fun conversation and so educational at the same time. I appreciate both of you guys' experience and your team effort to be here and join me on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
You are a delight. You've got a 1,000-watt smile, sister, that just lights up the whole screen. And thanks for doing this amazing work. And it was just a pure delight.
This has been one of the funnest interviews we've done in a long time.
Yeah, and I have to say, interviewing two people, you're the best that's ever interviewed.
Yeah, you do.
At the same time, you did. I mean, I took in some pointers. I am going to put your skill set in my Rolodex for interviewing other people who are pairs. So Thank
I
you.
appreciate you so much. And everybody, that is the show for today. Until next time. Bye.
Love, love,
Bye.
love.
Cheers.
Hi, I'm Kaci, Dr. Kaci. Welcome to Speaking Freedom. We are happy to have you, and we hope that we're able to help you in every way possible. Have a good evening. If you've enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. New episode every Friday.